Welcome everyone to this month's modality deep dive. We are exploring meditation and visualization, and our special guest is Joel Reeves. So before we dive into this amazing human Joel, I'll remind you that my name is Kelsey Corey. I'm the founder of Energy for Impact in the EFI Gym, and I'm an emotional fitness coach who is really passionate about helping you feel proud of who and how you are being in this world. And so that can be achieved through a number of different means and modalities and tools. And we have all of those to offer inside the gym. And Joel is in fact actually our latest instructor to join the gym. So very, very grateful to be welcoming him to the team. He is sharing with us twice a month, bi-weekly or fortnightly, depending on how you like to reference that, for a meditation and visualization. And we're beginning actually with a journey through the chakras. So we'll be diving into the sacral chakra this week and having a lot of fun exploring that. So Joel comes to us from Australia. He's a fellow Aussie down under. So even though I'm here in Canada, he's on the ground in Australia. And after 10 years serving in the Australian Defence Force, where meditation was a really big anchor and support for him with managing the stress of being in the Defence Force, Joel then left that and embarked upon the journey of becoming a certified meditation teacher. And so spending a number of years studying and collating all of the information that he's learnt in those realms, he brings it together and integrates it into the different, with a modern scientific approach into his coaching through one-on-one, through workshops and different courses in his company, the Crystal Clear Wellness Co. So Joel, without further ado, welcome.
Thanks so much, Kels. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having me. As Kels mentioned, I am the co-founder and director of Crystal Clear Wellness Co. I'm now a meditation teacher situated on Burleigh Heads in the beautiful Gold Coast in Australia. And I'm so honored to be a part of the EFI team. I love the whole idea of emotional fitness as opposed to physical fitness. I think, especially in this day and age, with everything that's going on in the world, it is so important to be looking after ourselves mentally. So thank you.
Oh, love you, Joel. Super excited to have you aboard. And I love, we'll start there because you've mentioned it, right? This concept of emotional fitness. And I've started to realize in terms of the communication of it, I'm seeing emotional fitness as the umbrella. And we have our physical fitness, we have our mental fitness, we have our social fitness, all kind of coming under those or relating to our health and well-being. But the emotions are the current that move through all of those and impact each of the different energies. So, and the beautiful thing is that meditation is quite a well-known tool in the well-being world these days. And so I discovered meditation a long, long time ago. And it was something that I didn't really use personally in a, what's the word? Kind of like a formal sense until it was actually in Queensland. I went to Magnetic Island to house sit a B&B with my sister and brother-in-law. And I did a 7-day meditation challenge, and I'd go down to the beach each day and sit myself down, listen to the guided meditation and drop in and have that practice. And that's really what kickstarted me to see what the momentum of meditation can achieve. So that's a little bit about where meditation started for me, but I'd love for you to share with us what was the path that led you to meditation.
Yeah, sure. So, as well, I've been acquainted with meditation for a long time. I was lucky enough that my father was actually quite into meditation. And I suppose back then, 80s, 90s, it was not a thing, right? Like, and not as big as it is now. I guess meditation had its resurgence in the 60s and 70s with the hippie and new age movement, but sort of fell off, out of the limelight, so to speak. So I was lucky to have that exposure, I guess, to a spiritual metaphysical modality at quite a young age. My father was also in the military as well. So I guess both of us are sort of an enigma in that we've gone from one extreme to the next in terms of, stress and what we do, I guess, as a hobby and for work. I was introduced to it at quite a young age, but I never really fell into meditation at that age. As a teenager, it was probably the last thing I was thinking about. I wanted to go party and do all that sort of stuff. but yeah, I eventually followed in my father's footsteps. I joined the military at 17. Actually enlisted at 16 years and 9 months, but then I was in like 2 weeks after my 17th birthday. So straight in, and 10 years I did. So I spent most of my adult life in the military, which comes with its own, I guess, benefits and disadvantages. It's a high stress environment, of course. It's one of, if not the highest stress and sort of job in the world, next to like air traffic controllers and law enforcement, I think. So that sort of put me back on my path to rediscover meditation, I guess. As you mentioned in the opening, as an anchor, definitely to keep my emotions in check. But yeah, so meditation was really something that I would fall back on every now and then. And, you know, I wasn't perfect. No one's perfect. I would go back to it, and then I would go for long phases and not do it. I suppose in the high tempo environment that the Defence Force is deploying every year, it sort of created that chaotic lifestyle. And eventually it became too much. You know, I had a previous relationship. We were about to have our first child, and I was due to deploy to the Middle East. And I was like, no, I can't do this. I would have missed my, you know, my first child's birth. And I was just like, no, I can't do that. I need to be there. And by that stage, I had already fulfilled my obligations for posting, I guess. And it sort of comes to the point in the military, unfortunately, at least in the Australian Defence Force, where you almost have to plead insanity to get out of, you know, going to a deployment like that. No, I wasn't insane, but I felt like my mental health was really struggling, you know, always being away from your family, both, you know, partners and immediate family, being posted to a different state than Queensland. I was posted in Sydney. So yeah, I'd sort of reached my wit's end, and I did eventually get a posting to an establishment in a support unit. So I wasn't frontline or anything like that. I could just sort of have a bit of normalcy in my life again, which was great. And that was where I sort of found meditation again. So I had that time to sort of switch off. So it was really good. And I was coming up to the end of my career, the Defence Force. My initial obligation was only 6 years. And at that time, they have changed it now. At that time, you had to give a year's notice, 12 months notice to separate from the Defence Force. You know, it's not like a normal job where you can just put your 2 weeks on and clean out your desk, so to speak. So yeah, so I had to sort of plan out a year in advance exactly what I was going to do, which is pretty hard. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing next month. So I had that, and I was like, yes, I could sort of see out my career in a bit of a normal environment, not constantly being deployed. And I came to a situation where the military lost my discharge, and I was like, what do you mean you lost my discharge? And there was no paper trail, no electronic paper trail, and I didn't have a leg to stand on because I myself didn't keep a paper trail. I just assumed that the system would work the way it was supposed to, right? Yeah, so it was basically like, well, no, you're not leaving. You're stuck here because you have no record. We have no record of your discharge. So that was a bit of a shock. I was like, oh, okay. I have to do at least another year now. And I did. You know, it got to the point where the military is financially a very secure job. You know, job security, financial security is all there in the military. You know, it's pretty hard to get fired from the military. And as I said, I was having my first child. She was just born. So I was like, you know what? Maybe 1 more year is probably not that bad. But the way they got me was because I didn't do the deployment. They're like, well, now you're going back on deployment. I was like, okay. So I ended up going to the Middle East anyway. So I was stuck back in. So I was like, and by that stage, I sort of accepted my fate, I guess. But that deployment really took its toll, I guess. It's a long deployment, you know, 6-7 months. which is just the deployment, not to mention all the pre-deployment training you have to do, which is at least a month or so beforehand. So it ends up being 9 months of the year that you're away from your family, which is, it's hard. Like, I just had a kid, my mental health was struggling, my partner's mental health was struggling, and it's not a really healthy environment for a child to be brought up in. Me constantly coming, going, coming, going. You know, if I was lucky, I would be home for a weekend here and there. Oh, and yeah, so that eventually led to the breakdown of our relationship, and I was back from the Middle East now, and yeah, my mental health was probably at an all-time low. Mm-hmm. And again, meditation came back, and I think it was this time I was like, okay, I really need this to, as I said, keep my emotions in check, because I was very angry. I was very bitter, very jaded at the world, at the Defense Force, at myself for allowing this sort of thing to happen. And I was in that blame mentality, I guess, it's everyone else's fault. It's not my fault. So yeah, meditation absolutely helped me. And, meditation is not a big thing in the military. I was sort of the exception to the rule. I didn't really know anyone at that point that meditated, so I didn't even really talk about it. The environment of the military is, by its nature, a pretty macho, testosterone-fueled environment. That is changing. There is a lot of females in the Defense Force these days throughout Western militaries, but still, because of the nature of the job, it is a very beaten chest sort of environment. So meditation is not something you generally bring up like, yeah, I sit down and listen to Zen yoga music,
Which is such a shame, because you would think how much everybody would benefit from, hey, let's start off our shift with everyone sitting in 10 minutes of meditation and grounding ourselves. Like, that's incredible. So as you were then coming out of the military, meditation was the way forward.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a game changer for me. Like, it helped me so much in my career. And funnily enough, it actually led to meeting my current partner, who was also in the military. So Sarah Sass, that everyone knows her as, we were deployed to the Middle East together, and we met whilst we were on R&R, or leave, in Jordan. And she was into meditation. And as I said, this is sort of the exception to the rule of meeting other people in meditation. I was like, oh my God, like, crazy. So yeah, we both sort of made the decision of like, this is not for us anymore, the military, we can't do this. And we both were already quite avid meditators anyway. So we decided to get out. We made the transition back to civilian life, and we moved back to Queensland, back to the Gold Coast, which was great. We was like, oh my God, yes, we have our freedom. Until we got here, and then it was like, your whole life is go, go, go in the military. Like, you don't have time to think or plan your life. You just get told where you need to be at what time, and that's the way it is. And because we'd been doing that for so long, myself, I did 10 years, Sass did 12 years. She actually was in longer than me. Yeah, you become sort of institutionalized. So when we got out, it was this massive culture shock of like, whoa, like, what do we do now? So we both tried to transition as best we could into the civilian world. Sass got a corporate job. I had a job as an engineering maintenance manager. So very different already to the 24/7 go military sort of way of life. So that was already a bit of a culture shock. But meditation became so big in our lives that I think we could no longer deal with all the how do I say it? The rubbish of the rat race, like I didn't want to be part of another cog, in the system. And I never was really an advocate for the 9 to 5, 40-hour week lifestyle. I was like, that's not me. which is probably why I joined the military in the first place, which ended up becoming a 24/7, 365 day year. I was like, well, I've sort of went the other way there. But yeah, we knew meditation was going to play a big part in whatever we were going to do. And, we had money saved up for the military. So we were just like, you know what, let's do it. We threw caution to the wind, and Sass actually was the first one to do it. She's like, I'm going to start a meditation business. And I was like, what? No way. And I was like, that's so cool. But I also had this fear inside me, I was like, how are we going to make money? How are we going to support ourselves? No one's going to want to learn meditation. But I couldn't have been more wrong, I guess. At that point, it was 2019, and then 2020 happened. It was like, whoa, the whole world is reeling from this shock that was COVID-19. And what better time to have things like meditation, right? So yeah, it sort of went from there. So we took a huge step back out of the rat race sort of world, and we ran with it. And ever since we've done that, yeah, it was scary, no lie, it was definitely scary, but ever since we've done it, everything's just fallen into place. And I put that a lot down to meditation, so it was hard, definitely hard. We had to sacrifice a lot of things, you can't go out every weekend and stuff, but that's fine. I think a lot of the things we sacrificed were probably things that weren't serving us anyway. So, I was studying meditation. I became a part-time barista. What a absolute change from the military, being in war zones, to engineering, and then to barista, studying meditation. It was, no one could really see my logic behind it, but I didn't really care. I was like, this is what I'm doing,
I love that. I'm curious to know what your latte art is like, of course. But
I'm pretty good. I should have showed you my coffee. I already drank the Love Heart.
I love it. And so talk to us a little bit about the meditation training that you did, and I guess how that helped you to better understand exactly what is meditation, and maybe dispel some of the meditation myths that are out there.
Yeah. So obviously I started it right when COVID, everything started. So I didn't really have the opportunity to go overseas like I wanted to. I really wanted to go to an ashram in India and learn the proper traditional yogic methods and things like that. I didn't have that option. So everything was virtual and in person as much as possible. So yeah, I learned a lot, as well as the history of meditation, which is obviously quite a rich history. I did counseling as well. So in part meditation course, it was part counseling course, a holistic counseling to be precise, I guess. I think, which we'll probably touch on later, it's quite important to have that sort of counseling aspect when you are a meditation teacher, because it can conjure up some uneasiness in some people, depending. So yeah, it was an amazing experience. I got to sort of learn bit by bit and then put it into practice myself as I went. And then it got to the point where I was like, all right, we can do this. So let's start doing meditation classes. And, I'm still a student. I'll be a lifetime student of meditation. I don't think I'll ever be a guru or such. And anyone that sort of claims they are, you're probably a bit naive. There's definitely some spiritual gurus out there, but they don't call themselves gurus. Everyone just sort of calls them that. Yeah. But even they admit themselves, they're a lifetime student. And that's how I feel about meditation. You're always learning. And, even now I have experiences in my meditations like, whoa, where did that come from? Complete, body dissociation and these mystical experiences that you would typically associate with, I guess, a psychedelic trip. Where, even if you've never done psychedelics before, that's, I guess, the best way you could explain it, right? And not that that's the point of meditation at all, but the fact that you can have these profound experiences doing something so simple, I guess, is pretty profound.
Fantastic. So I guess you've touched on a few points there, but what else about meditation in terms of myths that are out there? Because I know one of them for me, when I found out we don't all need to be able to sit in lotus position with our legs perfectly crossed and our back
Yes.
perfectly straight and hold that position full on. Like when I first learned about walking meditation, I was like, wow.
You can do that?
You mean I can walk? It was actually, I was at an ashram in India and we went on a morning walking silent meditation and we were going to focus on each step and
Yes.
it was profound. So yeah, share a little more around, I guess like the types of meditation and the myths of meditation.
Sure. Yeah, so obviously meditation is quite old. It's aged, estimates are between 5.5 to 7,000 years old, originating in India. So the first sort of physical record of meditation were wall carvings of people in those pretzel postures with half closed eyes in meditative states. So lotus, as it's known, is a yogic pose. And it's sort of pervaded through India, through the rise of Hinduism, which is, of course, is the oldest existing religion still being practiced throughout the world. And then right up until 600 BC, when Gautama Buddha was said to have been born, and also Lao Tzu in China, which then gave rise to both Buddhism and Taoism or Taoism. So meditation evolved again into not being just a religious experience where there's strict postures and techniques that you had to adhere to. It sort of became a more personal, individual, spiritual experience. There were still aspects of, say, for example, Zen meditation, which stems from Buddhism. You know, there's still quite, I guess, strict techniques that you can adhere to. But as I said, it became more of an individual spiritual experience. And as it evolved into modern day, as we said earlier, you know, the 60s saw a resurgence in the Western world anyway of meditation, which was quite novel to us all, you know, coming from, you know, we had religious experiences, religious background, I guess, in Christianity and Catholicism in the Western world and the Abrahamic religions, which also have their own meditation styles, usually with Bible scripture reading and things like that. But it was a very different approach, I guess, to silent and self-discovery. So yeah, that was, I guess, where it started and evolved. And the myths definitely, so lotus pose, you don't have to do lotus pose unless, like, it has its place, absolutely. It stems from yoga, as do all those sorts of poses, half lotus, you know, corpse pose. If you've ever practiced yoga, normally you end the class with corpse pose and go into a meditation. It's probably the easiest way to meditate, laying down. I guess the trouble is you'll fall asleep pretty easily as well. So,
and as I've learned, there is a difference between meditating and sleeping.
Correct, yeah. And it's a bit of a blurry line, I guess. The science behind it, the brain waves that happen when you're meditating are very similar, if not the same, as when you're asleep. But I guess it's the consciousness and the conscious activity of meditating rather than just going to sleep. But yeah, it is very much the same, but it's maintaining that awareness that you're actively doing what you are doing on purpose rather than just going, see ya.
Yeah, completely subconscious, switched off, I'm out. I love it.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, I guess that sort of myth, you don't really need to sit like that to meditate for an individual spiritual experience, or just doesn't even have to be spiritual, which I say a lot of people, you know, I guess there's sort of a dogma attached to it because of its religious roots. And I say dogma not in a bad way. It's just everyone associates it with like woo-woo, airy-fairy sort of stuff. But there's so much science to back up meditation, which is another big myth as well. It's not like this religious, spiritual thing. It is and can be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
It's both aspects, right? And it kind of brings And you mentioned the beauty of the self-discovery and the self-awareness that meditation can bring forward. And I think that for me has been one of the biggest benefits is that when I spend that time and shut out taking in from the outside world and allow myself to observe my inside world and what is going on, what are the emotional states that are coming up, and what are the feelings, the sensations, and being with them and being in that observer role. That's one of the things I love most about meditation is we can practice that non-resistance. We detach from what it is, and we're so good as humans judging our own experience, right? We get stressed out about being stressed. And so rather than that narration and that story we're telling ourselves about life, that opportunity to meditate and just drop in to that observer role is incredible. And so there are many other benefits as well. What are some of the benefits that you love to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the biggest benefit, I won't go the big, there's a lot of benefits. The main one is what you said, is that the incessant mind chatter, like that's always there, and we become so associated with the thoughts. We become our thoughts, right? And I guess the biggest learning for me is our body cannot tell the difference between something that's actually happening or something that our mind is making up, which is huge. And like, it sounds weird, but if you think about it, like if you think of an argument you may have had with someone, maybe like your partner or a family member, and you start to replay that argument in your head, you get angry. Like your body responds as if it's happening right now. So that was a big learning thing for me. I'm like, oh, okay. So my thoughts actually affect how I feel.
And while we're there, we'll bring in and reference the beauty of visualization in this scenario as well, because we do inside the gym, we kind of bring them together, meditation and visualization. Tried to say them both as one word, meditation. And that is so true. Our subconscious doesn't know the difference between a real experience and a felt experience. So that's the power. And we are such visual creatures. We've got our 5 different external senses. However, visual, for those of us who are able to use it, it is the biggest one. It's the one that provides us the most data and the most input. So when we turn our consciousness to visualization and connecting inward and using our imagination, tuning into that, we can, as you've said, either use it to ruminate and connect with things in the past that have perhaps caused uncomfortable emotion, or project out worry into the future and cause ourselves an unnecessary experience of discomfort in the here and now. Or we can also use visualization for the better, for the support of us, both allowing us to visually release. And there's some really great cord cutting meditations that help you to release that past attachment, emotional attachment, as well as using visualization as that tool looking forward and to help to create your future, help to draw to you. It's the whole energy behind manifestation as well, right? So do you want to add anything in there when we're reflecting on visualization?
Sure. So I guess almost touching back on the myths is the idea of meditation being about thinking nothing is not necessarily true at all. It can be in a really advanced forms of meditation, but for the most part, if you sit there and try and think about nothing, you're going to have a bad time, right? And a lot of us, because we have this hectic lifestyle, all those sorts of thoughts do start to flood in, like, oh my God, I have to pay bills, I have to pay rent, oh my God, I forgot to do this work. You start thinking about things in the past and you're out of the present moment. We're giving away our energy to the past or the future. So having a tool like visualization is really important because, as we said, our body can't tell the difference between something that's really happening or something that's happening in our inner world. So when you visualize, I guess, your future or something that you want to happen, and act as if it's happening now and feel the feelings as if it was happening now, like feel grateful that, oh my God, I'm so relaxed. Look, I'm visualizing me here sitting on this beach, listening to the waves roll in. I can feel the sun on my skin. I feel the breeze going through my hair, and visualizing it and feeling it. Straight away, your body responds. It's like, whoa, yeah, and it calms you down. And that's, I suppose, the power of visualization. As you said, it's the biggest one that we can associate with because our eyes take in so much information.
Yeah.
And I guess getting right into the nitty gritty, that our eyes, where the light and stuff come through, have a big effect on our pineal gland, which affects our waking sleeping cycle with melatonin production and things like that. But there's also receptors on the outside of our pineal gland, which are very much the same as the receptors in our eye. So it's theorized that when we're thinking, it affects the pineal gland, and that visualization gives us those feelings as if we're actually seeing it. So it's a very powerful thing.
And a beautiful point to add there is that the pineal gland is often thought of as the third eye. So it's located at the third eye chakra, right between our eyebrows, and it is that essence of creation, of sight, of vision, of visualization. So that's
definitely,
yeah, I love it. That's so beautiful.
So it's the eye of the soul, as it's been called in a lot of the esoteric ancient traditions, and it pervades through all of the ancient traditions, even seemingly unconnected traditions, Egypt, South America, Asia, all of those cultures had similar understandings of the pineal gland, and the pine cone can be found through all of the ancient traditions. And they didn't, they had no contact with each other, so they must have been onto something.
There's when we're saying this isn't the woo, this is also the woo. Let's be honest. We're in the world of the woo, and we're also in the scientific world, and the beauty of it is that it all interconnects and brings it together. And so I'd love to take us now to the, you kind of touched on this before. This is those moments, and it's important to have this element of the conversation particularly, is when mindfulness techniques like meditation and visualization actually are dysregulating. And by that, we mean that the nervous system, which in your description, just when you were visualizing of being on the beach with the wind in your hair and dropped in, and you said you calm yourself down, it's your nervous system which is responsible for your emotional regulation. So your nervous system responds to that and comes into a state of calm. Now, there are times where we, based a lot upon the trauma that we've experienced in our lives, that mindfulness techniques such as meditation and visualization can cause that dysregulation, and we go into having a stressful experience, an uncomfortable stressful experience. And we actually had a member during one of our sessions who had this experience, and she's very well versed in how to support herself. And this is the beauty of having these tools, having a range of these tools, because she immediately started using EFT tapping to help calm her nervous system when she realized that being in the meditation was what was dysregulating her. So she put that on hold, started tapping and supporting herself there. So the empowerment piece and the knowledge and the self-awareness is extremely key. But it's important to acknowledge, right, that this is a thing. Not everyone who has experienced trauma will have adverse reactions like this, but it's about being prepared for the possibility and how to support ourselves. And so you mentioned the beauty of your holistic counseling certification that came in with this. So I'd love to hear you share, your experience and suggestions and tips around preparing ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, meditation sometimes is not for everyone, especially if you've had traumas associated with certain things. That for some people, sitting alone with their eyes shut, stuck with their thoughts, can be terrifying. And it's not a cure-all. And I think it should be approached with some, not apprehension, but understanding that some of those things can absolutely arise. And I think the whole point of doing the holistic counseling side of it as well was to be prepared for those moments if you ever did have a client that had an uncomfortable experience. I chose for my holistic counseling, I actually furthered it to specialize in PTSD and CPTSD. I suppose because of my time in the military, I knew a lot of people that were struggling with those disorders. And again, meditation is not always the answer. So I think if you wind it back, we don't have to have our eyes closed. We can go back to the foundation of meditation, which most people agree is actually the breath or breath work. Breath work is such an amazing tool, which if used properly, can actually put you into a meditative state anyway, without you consciously thinking, okay, I'm going to do a meditation, because even that thought can trigger like, oh no, I don't want to be stuck alone with my own thoughts. But breathing is so interesting, where it's the only unconscious bodily function that we can consciously control. And as you said, the nervous system is absolutely affected by that. So when we spoke earlier about remembering stressful times and our body responds, and we can't control that, or we can control that, especially through the breath. As I say, it's the only unconscious thing. We can't really control our heartbeat or digestion or our immune system, but we can control our breath, which inadvertently then has an effect on everything else. So we spoke about the nervous system. I guess most people know fight or flight is the sympathetic nervous system, or the sympathetic part of our nervous system, whereas the opposite, rest and digest or relaxation, is the parasympathetic. And deep, slow breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, which is associated with the parasympathetic nervous system, which travels from our cranium all the way down to our bowel. I think it's the longest nerve in the body. It's nicknamed the wandering nerve. So when we do that slow, deep, purposeful, diaphragmatic breathing, it brings on those relaxation responses by stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. And I think as a society, Western world anyway, we've become very shallow mouth breathers just due to our stressful lives. We don't really take the time to, sit and breathe. Like, it sounds so obvious. Like, do you actually know how to breathe properly?
Well, it's funny, even just now hearing you saying this to me, I realized I was holding tightness. I was like, there was tension in my stomach, and I just went, oh, relax. Like, it's that, I love that you're making the connection between the consciousness of choosing to focus on the breathing pattern that you're using to support yourself. Because one of the beautiful things is that different emotions have different breathing patterns that they will bring in and call in for us, and our body does it as a way to help handle the charge of that emotion. But to your point about the shallow chest breathing, it's not supporting the whole of our system. And so when we can learn the different cues in the way our breathing changes during stressful and emotional experiences, then we can learn how to change that. And as you're saying, from the meditation perspective, focusing on the breath, whatever the style of pattern it may be that you're using to support yourself, can drop you into that point of meditation, which, when we come back to a meditation, is about a single focus, right? It's about bringing yourself into the here and now and being with what that experience is. So
definitely.
Yeah.
So I guess also I'll touch on that. The single focus can also be not necessarily in our mind, but we can also have an external experience. As we spoke about, not many people like having their eyes shut, being stuck with their own thoughts. So I guess touching on the visualization aspect again, there are meditations which you can do with your eyes open. They're generally known as Tritaka meditation. And it's usually when a soft gaze is placed on a mandala. For those who joined our community class, you would have noticed that we had the mandala loop playing on the screen. And that is known as a Tritaka meditation. You place a soft gaze, and it's usually a mandala, or it can be a candle, or sometimes a crystal. And again, coupled with the breath, I think the breath is really important. The breath is really your anchor in meditation. No matter what style of meditation you're doing, it always brings you back, keeps you very centered, and it's the most natural thing. It's the first thing we do when we come into this world, and it's probably the last thing we'll do as we leave the world, right? The first and last breath. And coupling the breath with a visualization technique with the eyes open can be also a great way if you struggle to have your eyes shut. And it's also a great way to turn the mind off, because, as we said, it's not necessarily having an empty mind being the point of meditation, but focusing on one thing can then, by default, it clears your mind because you're only focusing on that one thing.
It's like that whole, they tell you, don't think of a pink elephant. And what do you think?
Yeah.
Our subconscious mind cancels out the negative, and it hears think of a pink elephant. So when you say don't have thoughts, your brain is like, have thoughts. So it's that roundabout way that we go about things. And your point about the visualization and with the mandala, the beauty of I loved when you suggested that to me, and we were having our initial kind of like chat about what this can look like, how it can evolve. And I've loved that as this opportunity to really shift up the styles of meditation, because there's lots of different approaches, lots and lots of different approaches. And that's the beauty of it. And I'm excited, we're doing this chakra series with you, and then I'm not even sure where will we go next. So I'm excited to pull from your meditation and visualization toolkit and share it with us inside the gym. And one of the questions actually that came through from members, from one of our members, was around using meditation as one of those regular practices, as one of those tools that we go back to. We've had a lot of conversation, both inside the gym and then with my one-on-one clients as well, particularly around the difference between a habit and momentum. And I like to look at it as that often the habit is something that we feel that we have to do. We tell ourselves, I have to meditate each day. And like, you can have some very good reasons for it. I like to think of more of a momentum focus, and it's more connected with how do I want to feel? And so what you do on any given day, the habit actually becomes, I want to feel like this. So what is going to support me? And when you identify that meditation is something that you enjoy and you would like to have it in that regular fashion, what are some of your tips for integrating it into your life regularly?
Yeah, that's a great way to approach it, because you really don't want it to become a chore, because it's really not conducive for that sort of feeling that you're chasing. And
I was just going to say, in the gym we focus on practicing emotional fitness with love, little, often, varied and enjoyable. And it truly, your point about the chore there is that it always got to come back to being something that you are enjoying, and that it feels that it's supportive to you. So
I guess one of the best tips I could do is really give it your all for a week, 2 weeks if you can. And it doesn't have to be extensive, right? Another myth is that you need to meditate for an hour every day. If you're a Buddhist monk and you want to get up at 3-4 a.m. and meditate for an hour, that's cool, and you will probably have amazing benefits. But most people don't want to do that. We're struggling to fit it in around our busy schedule. So even 10 minutes is amazing. 10-20 minutes if you can, even better. And I would say just give it a try, like anything, right? Like when you try a workout or a diet, just try it and really use that momentum technique that you mentioned, and notice how you feel. And then when you don't do it, so maybe even skip it for a day or two, notice how you feel again. And usually you'll notice a big difference in how your day sort of pans out and how you feel throughout the day. Guilty is like, sometimes I miss my meditations in the morning. If I've stayed up late working or whatever, I'll have a little sleep in, and then I feel crap for the whole day. And I notice, I put it down. It's not like diet or anything like that. My diet and everything's pretty good. It's when I don't meditate in the morning, and it doesn't have to be an extensive half hour one. Like I said, just that 10 minutes to give yourself that time, even if it's just breathing. It doesn't have to be a full guided meditation. Just that breathing and setting your intention for the day can make a world of difference. And as you said, I think after you notice the feeling, you won't want to go back. So it's not thinking of it as a habit or something you have to do. Like you said, once you realize how that makes you feel, you won't want to stop. Now when I miss one, I'm like, oh man, I have to fit it in somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, in life, what we're doing is we're chasing feelings. That's truly what we're looking for, is to have that embodiment of particular emotions and emotional states. And we're the ones that define them as comfortable or uncomfortable, right? And so I love that you've really pulled this back to that importance of reflecting and the self-awareness. And so just checking in with yourself, and with any of the tools that we offer and that you do, it's about noticing, what is the impact of this? And has this helped me? Has this supported me? Am I feeling more aligned from this state? Am I feeling like I can show up how I want to now that I've supported myself? And one of the things I say often in our sessions is I thank the members for coming and joining, and because it's now I'm mincing my words. What do I always say? Thank you so much for choosing to be here and supporting yourself in the way that only you can. Yeah. So that's the thing. I won't have the same benefits from watching you meditate, right? It's something you have to embody yourself. And so this is beautiful because it kind of ties into where we'll kind of reflect on the different ways that you can integrate meditation with the different tools that you use and the different ways in which you choose to spend time, so that it's not so much of a, oh, I need to try and find time for it. It's like, how can you weave it into your day? So some of the fun ways that I love to integrate it with other tools in particular, if I know I'm going to sit down and do a meditation, I will start by doing a few rounds of tapping. And I will use that to signal to my nervous system, bring myself into the present. And then from there, I'm a little calmer. It's a little easier. It's almost like a bridge, a guide into that deeper meditative state. So if I am only taking 10 minutes, I really get a quality 10 minutes out of it, right? And then it's also, a meditation is beautiful when connected with journaling. So I find that I'll either have a journal with me by my side when I'm meditating, because often those thoughts, they don't want to leave. They don't want to. And then you get caught up in them and you're saying, well, especially if you have a good idea, how many times have like ideas and downloads come to you in a meditation? So I'll have the journal there and I'll just blink open an eye, quickly jot it down and drop back in. It's this opportunity to say, that thought is safe. That thought is safe. It's captured. I can continue.
Save that for thinking time.
Yeah, exactly. Save that. Or coming out of a meditation, just turning to the journal and allowing the thoughts to flow. So there's a few of the ways that I love to use it. What about yourself with integrating meditation?
Sure. So one of the biggest ones for me is mindfulness itself. I think mindfulness sort of gets mixed up with the term meditation in what either one actually is. And the best way I can describe it is mindfulness is a state of mind rather than an activity, you know. Like you can do a mindfulness meditation, absolutely, that can be a thing, but mindfulness is also something that you can just practice throughout your day. And I guess sort of touching on what we were previously talking about, becoming a habit, it almost is a habit for me now to meditate. So not a bad habit, it's a great habit. But I suppose one of the benefits of having that habit is that calm and gentle sort of self-reflective nature of meditation permeates throughout my day. And I find if something that triggers me or something that would trigger me, you know, years ago when I was an angry man, I have that sort of time to stop and respond rather than react. And mindfulness, I can describe it as being aware of your thoughts without becoming attached or judging, and that realization that I am not my thoughts, but I'm the observer, as we were speaking about earlier. So mindfulness is something that I really try and practice every day as well. Even with things, you know, like driving down the highway and someone cuts you off, and normally, you know, you'd be on the horn, you're like, ah. But no, just stop, have that breath. My day's not ruined. Like, why is that bothering me? Like, maybe they're on the way to the hospital. Maybe they're having a really horrible day. Maybe their child's sick, you know, whatever. Like, and it's having that awareness of my thoughts and picking myself up with like negative self-talk as well. If I do something and I'm like, oh, you idiot. And I'm like, no, I'm not an idiot. I'm learning, you know, like I'm a human. And yeah, so mindfulness is probably the biggest one for me. It's like, it's almost like quality assurance for your thoughts, you know, just like, it's almost self-regulating, like, no, don't think that. Yes.
I love that. I love that you said, so the meditation, this is my interpretation of what you just shared. The meditation is almost that catalyst for mindfulness throughout your day. It kind of like helps to drop you into, put you into that observer role, and you are more often likely to maintain that and support yourself. That hearing you share that, it was like, that's the epitome of being kind and compassionate to yourself. And not something that many of us are very good at, right? And that it is, it's unfortunately, it's hard. And so the goal is, the more we practice being kind and compassionate and loving and accepting ourselves as we go, the better we become at it, right? All of our emotional states is something we can practice. And that's as we were referencing with the visualization and like the future pacing, and kind of looking at what you're doing by doing that is bringing yourself into that emotional state in the here and now, that acting as if, and you're training your nervous system that it's possible. It's okay for you to feel that way. And so it shall be. So that's, it's the beauty of it.
Definitely. I guess, as we were speaking about earlier, like it's mostly a function of the subconscious, right? And studies show that up to 90 to 95% of everything we do every day is habit, and habits are driven by the subconscious. So I guess the more you practice meditation and mindfulness, it will eventually become a habit as well, but a positive one. When you start to rewrite all those negative habits, like, you know, talking bad about yourself, or flipping someone off because they cut you off on the freeway, or, you know, things like that. And you have that self-awareness to step back and go, hang on, I don't need to act like that, or whatever. So that's one of the probably biggest benefits for me, actually, is that calm and relaxing nature of meditation eventually just becomes your nature.
Yeah.
I'm pretty chill all the time. And I probably put that down, meditation.
Well, the beauty of that is that instead of riding these massive waves from a calm state into a dysregulated state, back to calm, we get to be a little more smooth sailing in regards to our emotional state, and the ability to come back from a dysregulated, the fight, flight, or the freeze, faint, fawn kind of responses. We can respond. Sorry, those are our stressor reactions. We can respond to those from that place of supporting ourselves and bringing ourselves back. So
definitely, it's beautiful. And that's one of the biggest benefits for me. And I think all of the other benefits from meditation could probably fall under that, because a lot of the, I guess, triggers that most of us have are a factor of being stuck in the sympathetic nervous system all the time. Anxiety, depression, anger, inflammation, illness, you know, all of those things can be, I won't say reversed, but definitely helped with meditation. And because of that benefit of regulating your nervous system, your subconscious, it's huge.
It's a beautiful way to support ourselves. It is a game changer. And Joel, would you believe we have reached the end? We've probably gone a little longer than we planned to, but I know that we could just continue talking about this for hours. So it has been so much fun. I've loved having this chat with you, and I know the members on the call will likely be waiting to be able to check in with us and answer any other questions that have popped up for them. But before we go, for anyone else who's going to be watching this after, I'd love for you to share, outside of the EFI gym, where and how can people get in touch with you and learn about what you're offering?
Definitely. So give our Instagram a follow, Crystal Clear Wellness Co. rather. I post all of our stuff up there. I've actually recently launched a free meditation course, which is available for everyone. No cost involved. It has guided meditations. It teaches you all the things we've been talking about: the breath, the myths, the benefits, the sort of styles of meditation, the sitting positions, and it's all on there. I really hope you guys get on that and enjoy it, and do with it what you will, and hopefully it allows you to cultivate your own practice. Definitely give us a follow on Instagram. We share things all the time, just little tips and tricks and other things outside of meditation, you know, which are similar, like yoga and qigong and all other types of wellness modalities.
Fantastic. And then also come along and enjoy some sessions with Joel inside the gym. So wherever you get to experience him, I know that you'll enjoy it. And Joel, thank you so much for our time together today. This has just been such a joy. I'm sending you a big hug.
Thanks, Kels. Thanks so much. And thank you, everyone.
Love it. Bye.